So I have been asked to say a few words about the importance of Sila. Now, Sila is a Pali word which means morality. And I think in Western culture, modern Western societies, the idea of morality seems to be quite old-fashioned because we are people who can do anything we want and often without any obvious consequence. But in Dhamma training, morality, how we live in the world, is considered to be very important. In fact, it's considered to be the basis of everything we do. We speak about Sila, Samadhi, Panya. Sila, morality. Samadhi, we can use that word to mean, in this case, meditation. And then Panya, wisdom, the culmination of a wholesome lifestyle and a meditation practice are like two hands that wash each other, resulting in this evolving wisdom, this purity of being. So the precepts are actually very simple, and they are not instructions given to us by the Buddha or by some authority, but they are recommendations that if we want to live a life that has value to ourselves and to the planet, to all beings, then we need to have some rules of conduct that we can follow and then benefit from. And it is said that the awakened being is the one who lives in this way naturally. So when we bring these, I'm going to speak about the 5 precepts. So when we bring these 5 precepts into our life, then we are living the life of an awakened being. How beautiful is that? Of course, they're not spontaneous for us. That would be the difference. But we train ourselves. So at some point we have to decide, well, I want to change my life. I want to be more aware. This is the Vipassana practice, the cultivation of awareness, of internal awareness, which technically we would call mindfulness, and then the external awareness of how we live in the world, from simple things like crossing the road to the quality of our relationships with all other beings. And so we have these 5 guidelines. The first one is that, and it's always said like this, I undertake the rule of training to refrain from. So the 5 rules of training, the 5 precepts, are guidelines, and they are to refrain from certain kinds of behavior. But the first part of that sentence is really important, where we say, I undertake the rule of training. I do this. No one is telling me, it may be suggested to me, but in the end I'm making that decision as to whether I will decide to live in this way or not. I undertake the rule of training. And if I undertake this rule and I follow it, then I will meet the benefit of that. If I don't undertake this rule, I decide not to follow it, then I will meet the consequence of that. So all of our Dharma life, our Dharma journey, is about personal choices. It's about what you feel has value, what you feel is important. So the first thing is that I undertake the rule of training to refrain from harming other living beings. Now, perhaps you think, well, I don't do that. I don't kill animals. I don't go hunting. I certainly don't kill people. But we have to take a closer look of how we live. If we are meat eaters, then there is an association with that kind of behavior. If you want a bacon sandwich, the first part of that is an animal has to be killed. Now, if you think that's fine, then there's nothing more to say. If you think, well, that's worthy of reflection because I don't really want to be involved in the harming of animals or any other beings, including, fish and birds and insects, then I need to take greater care with that. So that's the first precept. And this first precept is so powerful that if the whole world decided we're all going to keep just one rule to refrain from harming other living beings, then all violence would stop, all wars would stop, all rape and assault would stop. Just by that one simple rule. This is how important these precepts are. So that's the first one. I undertake the rule of training to refrain from harming other living beings. But of course, implied in that is its opposite. So I'm going to take care of these beings. I'm going to serve them as best I can. And this, of course, includes me. I'm going to take care of me. I'm going to, as much as I'm able, take good food, to exercise, to work in a good environment. I'm going to do everything I can to allow my heart to open so that I can be happy and then share that happiness with the universe. So that's the first precept. I undertake the rule of training to refrain from harming other living beings. The second precept is I undertake the rule of training to refrain from taking that which is not freely given. So this means to be patient. In more coarse language, we can say, well, it means not to steal, and it definitely does mean that. But it's much more subtle. As we penetrate these precepts, we can see that they take us to new depths of understanding. So that we wait patiently for things to be given to us. We're not hinting, I would like this, or if only I had that. We're not rushing to get the new smartphone or tablet or car or anything else. That we're cultivating patience in our life. Patience is such an important quality. That we're not just looking for that next moment of happiness, which is over there, if only I could buy that particular thing. So we wait for things to be offered to us. We go to somebody's house and we don't just open their refrigerator and take something out, or we don't just eat chocolate that's on the table. We wait for it to be offered. This cultivates patience and a kindness and a gentleness. So this is the second precept. I undertake the rule of training to refrain from taking that which is not freely given. Freely. So we're not trying to manipulate people into giving us what perhaps they don't want to give us, but we want, we have a desire for. And then, of course, the other side of that is, well, I'm going to share what I have, and we all have so much. Even if you think, well, materially, I don't have very much. But you have, at different moments, you have your kindness, you have your happiness, you have your patience, you have your ability to be of service. And so this is the second precept. I undertake the rule of training to refrain from taking things which are not freely given. The third one is slightly different. When we are on retreat, we have the precepts, and the third precept means I undertake the rule of training to refrain from sexual misconduct. Well, in life also, this is a good rule, that if we are with someone, then we owe them our fidelity, and that we take care of that we don't involve ourselves in sexual misconduct. But more generally, in our ordinary life, it opens up and we can say that I undertake the rule of training not to abuse or misuse others, not to use our power in some way to manipulate another being, to get them to do something that they don't want to do, but that we really want them to do. And it's that old expression, well, if you loved me, you would. You know, we want someone to do something, they don't want to do it, so we just apply that little bit of pressure where we say, well, if you loved me, you would. You would do this thing that you don't want to do to prove your love to me. But of course, in Dhamma, this means this is just empty. And the right understanding and then the right response is, well, I do love you, but I'm not going to do that. Because the two things are not connected. And so the other side of that is, again, is to be of service, is to help and not use any authority we may have to humiliate or take advantage of others. But always, this is such an important part of practice. It really belongs to the world of what we would call dana. Dana is usually translated as generosity, and then applied primarily to money. But in actual fact, dana is just a generosity of heart. It can be money, it can be service, helping someone, many things. Anything that is joyfully, freely, and intuitively offered without looking for something back. Even a thank you, we're not looking for something back. So that's the third one. I undertake the rule of training to refrain from abusing or misusing others. And then, of course, the sexual misconduct part. The fourth one is that I undertake the rule of training to refrain from wrong speech or from speech that is cruel and unkind. It's so easy, especially if we lose our control because we become angry or irritated or upset, that we can very easily say something, to say those really unpleasant, cutting words, to raise ourselves in front of someone else. But when we take this rule of training, we're going to take care with our speech. We're going to use our speech in a kind way. We're going to share the loving part of us. We're not going to be victims. This is something really important to understand. Although I speak about gentleness and love and service and compassion and kindness, all these qualities of the heart, all of them are given freely and joyfully, but never at the expense of being a victim. You are not in your life to be a victim to someone else, so take care of you. You know, when we come to the loving kindness practice, the first part of our loving kindness practice is to have this relationship with ourselves where we're not going to be the victim, that we're going to take care of ourselves. One student in France said to me one time, well, if I have loving kindness for everyone else, won't that make me weak? Won't they take advantage of me? And I said, well, if that's possible, then it's because you don't have loving kindness for yourself. When we have loving kindness for ourselves, then we do not put ourselves in the position or do not allow ourselves to fall into that position of being the victim to someone else's. It's like the third precept again, that we're not going to be manipulated and cajoled into doing something we don't want to do, even with that extra pressure of, if you love me, then you would do it. So as I say in Dhamma, that argument doesn't make any sense. I do love you, but I'm not going to do it. And so for the fourth precept, we speak about using our speech in a way that brings harmony to people. So the rule itself is I undertake the rule of training not to use my speech in cruel and harmful ways. But the other side of that is what I'm really speaking about now, is to use our speech to harmonize, to bring people together, to be the peacemaker. So this is the value, because speech is such an important tool that we have. You know, they say that the tongue is soft, but it can cut like a sword. And I think we all know that. We've all been, in some way, been abused by others through their speech and made to feel small and perhaps insignificant and everything else that comes from that. So we now, as Dhamma devotees or Dhamma people, at least people interested in Dhamma, in moving forward in our life in a beautiful way, at least we can begin to reflect, oh yes, speech can do a lot of damage. And then, of course, once something is said, it exists. Even if later you apologize, it still exists in the universe. It's still a memory for someone else. So we do have to take care. We do really have to take care. And then the fifth one, I undertake the rule of training to refrain from drugs and intoxicants that cloud the mind. So we live in cultures that where alcohol is freely accessed and is available to everyone, certainly over a certain age. But as Dhamma people, you know, we have to look at what happens if we take too much alcohol and then any other kind of drug. Alcohol is a very strong drug. But alcohol and those other drugs like marijuana, heroin, cocaine, all those drugs that I have very little experience of actually, they alter the consciousness. And so we miss seeing what's in front of us because we're seeing something affected by that alcohol. And so what we need to do is just to reflect on that. When I'm drunk or when I'm incapacitated through beer and wine and spirit, then I become dangerous. I become dangerous to myself. I become dangerous to other people. We have all kinds of laws around. You know, you can't drive a car when you're intoxicated or ride a motorbike, etc., because it's a dangerous way to be, because we're no longer seeing clearly. But our Dhamma way is to see clearly. That's what our meditation is about. It is about cultivating awareness and the internal mindfulness so that we're no longer deluded by what the mind presents. That's the fifth precept. And so we look at the opposite of clouding the mind to clarity of mind. To sit, the practice that we use is called vipassana. And the purpose of vipassana is not really to get something, it's not to become enlightened. Enlightenment isn't really the goal of our practice, it's simply the consequence of it. Our practice is to see the mind so we're no longer deluded by it. And to do that, we need a clear head, of course we do. So these are the 5 precepts, these are the foundations really for our Dharma life, and it's said that when we live like this, we are living in a way that an awakened being spontaneously lives. So how beautiful is that? That you take on the characteristics of an awakened being, not with the wisdom part, not yet, but with the worldly part. And so your life then becomes a blessing to you and to all beings. That you're not going to harm yourself or others, but you're not going to steal from them or take things that they may want. You're not going to abuse their trust or confidence. You're not going to use your speech in cruel and harmful ways, and you're not going to you take drugs that cloud the mind, that you no longer see reality. So these are the 5 precepts. It's such an important training, and just to continue and finish now, the reason this is emphasized is because when we come to meditation, what you're meeting is you. You're meeting the life and the thoughts that you empower. That's what you're sitting with. You're not sitting with some special vipassana or meditation mind. You're sitting quietly, taking your posture, something like this. And then you meet you. You meet your old habits. It's unavoidable. You can't avoid meeting your life. And of course, this is the great thing, because you're meeting your old karma, or vipaka as it's called. You're meeting the past of you. And that's what we have to do. We have to meet those things, see them, know them, acknowledge them, and then let go of any identification with them as having value in our life. So we let go and let go and let go. But if we are doing this practice of letting go, letting go, letting go, and then going back to our ordinary life and killing things and harming the planet and other beings and stealing, then you're never advancing, of course not. So the Panchasila, the 5 precepts, is an important, it's not only a starting point, it's a continuing development that with a little bit of Sila and then a little bit of meditation, then you begin to see the Sila, so it develops by itself, and then you see how the mind works, and that develops by itself. So it's these 2 hands, Sila and Samadhi, 2 hands that wash each other, resulting in wisdom. So this is our Dhamma practice. So I offer this to you today for your consideration and your reflection, and may you all be well and happy.